Welcome everybody, let's start with bisector. So we have a line, and if this line is divided into two equal pieces by another line segment or another line, we call that line as bisector. So bisector divides the line or line segment into two equal pieces. So as you see that, it could be like 30 degrees in between those two lines, could be 40 degrees on different angles, but bisectors must divide the line segment into two equal pieces from any direction. Look, this is 40 degrees in between those, like bisector and the line AB. So bisector divides line AB into two equal pieces. Let's look at perpendicular right now. We have two lines again, but if the angle in between these two lines is 90 degrees, we say those two lines are perpendicular to each other. So line AB is perpendicular to line CD. Or another, let's see another example. Line, let's say E and F, line segment EF, and line segment GH. So EF is perpendicular to GH. Hey guys, we have learned bisector and perpendicular. Let's put them together. Let's say perpendicular bisector, which means bisector will divide the line segment into two equal pieces, and it will be 90 degrees in between GH and the line segment. As you see, it's gonna divide into two equal pieces. And let's look at another example. We have KL. That's KL is perpendicular to CD, and KL divides CD into two equal pieces. So KL will be perpendicular bisector. Okay, we have an example here. Point A and B make a line segment AB, and we are going to find the midpoint, let's say point C, because bisector will passes through the midpoint. That's why I'm looking at, for x coordinate horizontally, we have 5 units here to the left of y-axis, to the right of y-axis we have 7 units. Totally I'm going to have 12 units. So I'm going to write down here for x coordinate I have 12 units. Okay, 12 units divided by 2 is 6 units. So we are going to put to find the midpoint, or x coordinate or midpoint, we are going to put the red point 6 units away, O point B. Yeah, just basically we are finding the midpoint, or x coordinate or midpoint. To find y coordinate or midpoint, we are going to look at vertically. So vertically we have 6 units difference, or in between A and B, 6 units. So to find the midpoint, we are going to divide 6 units by, for y coordinate, we will divide 6 units by 2. So we will have 3 units, which means 3 units up to find the midpoints or y coordinate. So we are going to meet those two coordinates on the line segment AB, and it gives us the midpoint. Okay, now we found point C, which is x coordinate 1, y coordinate 5. And we need to know that perpendicular bisector will pass through this point C, and point C in the middle of the line segment AB. And we know that perpendicular bisector divides the line segment AB into two equal pieces, and there's a right angle in between perpendicular bisector and the line segment AB. Right now we have another example. We have point C and D, and point C and D form a line segment. Point C, -4 and 7, point D, 2 and 25. They form a line segment, and perpendicular bisector divides this line segment into two equal pieces, and two equal, let's say, line segment. So there's a 90 degrees in between perpendicular bisector L and line segment CD. This line segment L is perpendicular bisector. Let's find the midpoint. Let's name it F, and we are going to find point F. So for x coordinate, we have from point C we have -4. From point D we have 2. So we're going to add them up and divide it by 2. -4 plus 2 is going to be -2 divided by 2 is -1. So x coordinate will be -1. For y coordinate, we just add y coordinate of C and y coordinate of D and divided by 2 will give us the midpoint of y coordinate of midpoint. So 7 plus 25 divided by 2 is 16. So 16 is y coordinate of the midpoint. So midpoint F is -1 and 16. So the midpoint F is, the coordinate of midpoint F, -1 and 16. Okay, let's move on. I'm going to talk about gradient. We have a line segment here, and I'm moving up a little bit and moving down, lifting it up a little bit. And we need to know that gradient is the steepness of the line segment, or you can say that how steep a slope is. So to find the steepness, of course, we need to know the difference vertically and horizontally. When you climb up a mountain, as you know, that if it's very steep, it becomes very hard to climb up or hike. So let's say to find the steepness, gradient is vertical rise divided by horizontal run. So to find vertical rise, of course, we are going to subtract y coordinate each other and divided by x coordinate each other. So if I have 2 points, and remember from the previous question, we have point C and point D, -4 and 7. Point C. Okay, point C and point D from the previous question. And to find the steepness of this line segment, which means gradient, we are going to subtract y coordinates from each other, x coordinates from each other, and of course vertical rise divided by horizontal rise. So to find vertical rise, I'm going to subtract y1 from y2, and to find horizontal one, the distance horizontally, x1 from x2. So it's going to be 18 divided by 60, which is 3. Gradient is 3. Right now, what we need to know is if two lines are perpendicular to each other, the product of their gradient is -1. So I'm going to show you guys, because if they are perpendicular to each other, there's a right angle in between two lines segments. Let's say I'm drawing here. So the product of their gradient, M1 and M2, let's say the product of their gradient is -1, and 1 times M2 is -1. So what I know is from the previous example, the gradient of line segment CD is 3. The gradient of line segment CD is 3. And also, let's say perpendicular line L, the gradient of here is CD, and let's say here is this M1 is gradient of L. If I name it L, yes, the gradient of L is M1. I'm gonna find it. So I just multiply, guys. I'm gonna replace M1 times 3 is gonna be -1, and M1 will be -1 over 3. So I find this L, the gradient of line L, let's say perpendicular line. So finally, I would like to tell you, if we know a point and the gradient, two simple things. If we know a point and the gradient, we can simply write down the equation. The equation is, I have to draw a line to show you easily. And to find the perpendicular bisector's equation, the equation of perpendicular bisector, I have to use the midpoint, because this midpoint belongs to perpendicular bisector as well. So the midpoint is F negative 1 and 16. And the gradient is, that we found that the gradient of this perpendicular bisector is negative 1 over 3. Negative 1 over 3. I'm going to copy it and paste it here. So we have, guys, we have a point, negative 1 and 16. And this line segment, we know its steepness, which is negative 1 over 3. And if I say any point, if I choose any point on this line segment, and if I name x and y, and I'm going to subtract to find, remember guys, to find the gradient, I'm just directly write the formula, or the formula of finding gradient. We use the gradient formula, let's say, formula, so which is minus 1 over 3 equals, so to find the equation minus 1 over 3, we are using the formula, the gradient formula, so which is m equals, we are subtracting y coordinates from each other, x divided by x coordinates from each other. That's it. So the gradient is minus 1 over 3. So if I choose a point on this line segment F and L, let's say there, so y minus 16 divided by x minus 1, x minus negative 1, and I have to choose, parentheses. I have to use parentheses, otherwise I may make a mistake. Okay, everybody, I'm going to use cross multiplication. We have negative 1 times x minus 1 is x plus 1 equals 3 times y minus 16. So if you organize, or if you modify, you'll see that negative x minus 1 equals 3y minus 48. Then 3y, and I'm just negative x will be on the right side. 3y plus x equals 47. So this is the, okay everybody, this is the equation of the perpendicular bisector. Finally, but briefly, I would like to tell you, to find the equation of the perpendicular bisector, at first we need to find the midpoint. Then we are going to find the gradient. Then we are going to find the gradient of the perpendicular bisector. Finally, we know a point and a gradient. And of course, easily we can write down the equation. Thank you so much for watching.